Okay, Rattlers, we're about to get started. We're never late. Remember that. If we are, it's your fault, not mine. Uh, I talked with our athletic director about an hour ago, and I told her that the campaign to raise $50,000 for women's sports at FAMU, this unprecedented campaign in FAMU's history, that we were at $16,000 already. And she was ecstatic to think that we were already at $16,000. And she said that wanted me to announce that every member who gives at least $1,000, their names are going to be engraved on a plaque and going to be put inside the women's athletic room right outside her office. Uh, I first said, could we put it in the field house? But she said that's football. Yeah, football don't equal women athletic sports. No, is Coach smiling? Tell me. Yeah. Well, tell me. Remember, I said 50. You said 42. Just want. Oh, right now. Yeah. Well, we just started yesterday. Yeah. Okay. But she's ecstatic that women's sports are that we're doing so well. And I got a call today from Maurice Jones in Jacksonville, who told me to put him down for another 1,000. Yeah, and I see Coach and Mrs. Bogan here, so we can add another 1,000 to that already. Let's give a good round of applause to Coach Bogan and Mrs. Bogan. Coach Bogan, I always remember the time I called your house and because I was having a tough time reaching you on the cell phone, and your wife said he's not here, and I said okay, I'll try a cell phone. She said good luck with that. So uh, there was another gentleman here, and Mrs. Cobbs, because she's the money person. I called Lloyd Cobbs and told him about the campaign. He told me to put him down for 1,000, like Cobbs always says. Now, one thing I want to make $5,000, 5,000 of those dollars so far have come from people who uh, watch us on YouTube. So this is clearly we are growing on YouTube. We're getting more support from people on YouTube. So it's important for you to come every week. So we have a lot of orange and green here. Lord, where's Mrs. Cobbs? I want to see Lord. Where's Mrs. Cobbs? Oh yeah, right there. Okay, we'll wave to her. You all right too, Lord. Ella, Ella Cobbs. That's Cobbs with a S. They're not related to our booster president. Oh, Seven said you got more money than they have. That's why y'all have a S on yours. Uh, Oh, Reverend Holmes also want to add $1,000 to that. Uh, y'all know there is Florida A&M doesn't have any reason to be struggling in athletics. It's just that we haven't got down to the nitty gritty and really trying to raise some big money for athletics in general, including all sports. Uh, I want to recognize just a couple of the people before we get started. I think Mr. and Mrs. Moses Corey here. Where Mr. and Mrs. Moses Corey? All right, welcome. Thank you. Thank you for coming. And we have a great basketball player here who I was happy to give a few points when he was working on his game. Um, his jump shot was a little shaky. And that's Wade Bellamy and his wife. Where's Wade? Wilbur Johnson, you got some people at your table. Who are they? I know who she is. I just wondered if you knew. Who you got at your table, Wilbur? Oh, Angela. Okay. And who else? Is that it? Freddie, he don't seem to think too much of you. Well, you didn't seem to remember who he was. That's all. That's all. I better leave. I'm gonna leave you alone, Will, because I don't have any money from you yet. All right, Leroy. Okay, we got a special guest in the house today from our sports information department. Josh, that's not you're not director of sports information. What is your actual title? Director of Communications and Digital Strategies. A lot of people after this meeting are going to walk up to me and say, "Hey, what are digital strategies?" Josh is the director of communications and the digital strategies of the year in the SWAC conference. So let's give Josh a round of applause. Josh brought FAMU athletics into the 21st century, and he has a special announcement to make. Josh, I think I'm gonna bring you up and let you do that before we bring up Seven Carr. Althea Gibson Fund for Women's Sports, account 2649. Hashtag 2649. Let Seven go first. I had planned to do that anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, FAMU's president of the Boosters, Mr. Seven Carr.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to be real quick. This Eddie Jackson comedy hour is really getting big. Okay, moving right along. I got two announcements to make. And the first one is the very first FAMU NAA Rattler Boosters Roundup. It's going to be held Friday. That's this coming Friday. I think it's the 15th. It's going to be at the Holiday Inn, 2102 Appalachia Parkway. Starts around 6 o'clock. Come by. There's a cover charge of $10. Going to have hors d'oeuvres, play games, participate in games, drawings, and there's going to be a cash bar. So all the proceeds from this event will go into our FAMU athletics department. The second announcement that I'm going to make is going to be the classic luncheon. Now, I know that some of you all have been to the Florida Classic Luncheon, but if you haven't been to the Florida Classic Luncheon, you're missing the treat. It's a great time. You'll have players from both teams. There will be fans from both teams. The presidents from each university will be there giving a speech, talking, and they always try to one-up each other. Then the athletic directors, they're next, and they will one-up each other. And then the football coaches will be there. So it's just a great event. We have limited tickets available. Luncheon is again $100. We are the host team this year, so we also host the luncheon at our place of choice. And the place of choice this year is the Grand Hyatt Grand Cypress. So as I said earlier, we do have limited tickets, and see me if you're interested. The last announcement, I always try to give you an update on what's going on in sports, and except football, I leave that up to coach, and that's volleyball. Last weekend, we hosted the FAMU Invitational volleyball matches, where we had schools from University of South Alabama, Georgia Tech, and Stetson. Those four schools came out. Uh, we the match that I attended was Thursday, and we were faced the University of South Alabama, who hadn't lost a volleyball game all year. Well, when they went back to their hotel Thursday, they had one loss. So we were able to win the volleyball contest on Thursday. Now, as the weekend approached, this competition got a little stiffer, and we dropped our matches to Stetson, and we dropped our match to Georgia Tech. Uh, this weekend, the volleyball team will be in Charleston, South Carolina, and they're hosting. I mean, the host will be the Charleston Southern, so it'll be the Charleston Southern Invitational. Next weekend, I think is the big opening up of the SWAC schedule. And next Friday, the volleyball team will be playing Alabama, Alabama State. So we got Alabama State and then volleyball on Friday, and then we'll finish off the weekend by beating them on Saturday. Oh, I'm sorry, I got it right here. And by the way, okay, Ms. Walker says she can't read it. All right. But I would tell everyone, if you have not downloaded the app, the Rattler Athletics app, everything you want to know is in that app. So I would suggest that you go ahead and download it. And if you don't have it, see Eddie, and he'll get it for you. Okay. Then you coming back up, or you want me to pass the mic to Josh? Okay. All right. Josh, you're next.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are everyone doing today? Good, good. So I wanted to come by to kind of just uh, talk about the app, the athletic app, just make it easy for everyone to kind of find the information that they need and follow the teams that they want to follow, whether it's, just women's sports, maybe it could be just football, maybe it's just cross country, or maybe it's all sports. Basically, we have something in the app for everyone. Um, so the app, there's some papers passed around that has QR codes on it. You could scan it and it should take you to the app. If not, go to your App Store or Google Play Store and search Florida A&M Rattlers. Once you're in the app and it's downloaded, we have these tabs right here on the front. Rattlers Plus. It takes you to where we have a bunch of videos you can watch, mic'd ups. Uh, we have mic'd ups. I'm trying to think what else we have. We have a little series on the football team for the Orange Blossom Classic. Um, there's tickets tab. You'll be able to manage all your digital tickets and right there in the app. So you click on that and it'll take you to the FAMU Ticketmaster portal. And you'll be able to access all the tickets that they upload in there, as well as purchase tickets. Um, there's a fan guide. It'll be updated before the game. I'm still waiting to get the information, finalized information, but you would click on the fan guide and it'll take you to different tabs. It'll be like clear bag policy. There'll be a parking section. You just click on whichever tab you're looking for, and it'll take you to that little tab of information. You donate, shop, the maps. I'm working on adding all the different parking locations. So if you're trying to find a specific parking lot, you can click on it right in the app, and it'll take you to your preferred app to get directions to whichever parking lot. Maybe it could be Bragg Stadium, it could be Al Lawson, it could be something else. We'll also plan on adding some of our partner locations. So if we have partners with the restaurant, or maybe Piggly Wiggly, and you want to shop with partners that support FAMU athletics, you'll be able to tap there and get directions to those places as well. And then as far as the games, everyone's setup will be different based on what sports you choose to follow. But for instance, I follow all the sports. You'll get game notifications as soon as the game starts, quarter updates. I'll open up a past volleyball match. They'll have stats in there, so you can see the stats from the match or the game. For football, for instance, for this upcoming game, we have digital programs. So you click on football and you click on digital program, and it'll take you to the digital program. So, you'll have the rosters, schedule, coaches. Within that, there's also, the standings for the SWAC, the top 25 rankings, different little videos if you want to watch. So it's all in the app and can access everything through the app. And then and you also can listen to the game on the radio in the app as well. Mhm.
Which is traditional, like 90.5 or
Mhm.
96.1. Why, for the first time in broadcast history, you're not broadcasting on those regular radio stations?
Yeah, so the tradition, I know last year they tried, Peak Sports owns the radio network. I know last year they tried to work with 96.1, but they weren't able to come to an agreement on broadcasting. But as for now, it's all digital, it's all online. So you just need to have the app.
To get it on regular radio.
That's kind of something that's with Peak Sports and other administration, and working with the radio networks to get the proper licensing and approval for it.
Yeah, we'll check with after that.
Okay.
Yeah, boy.
I'm gonna just respond to one question online, just from institutional knowledge. It was about it's going to be hot this weekend. What is the athletic department doing to be prepared to handle that? FAMU Athletics always in the south end zone on the west side. Our medical units are always there, and Tanya Tatum and her team usually set up on the other side. So there will be. I would just suggest everyone just put eyes on where those first aid and their cooling stations under there as well. Just put eyes on those before you walk into the stand, because they are on both sides. So that's response to the question from online.
Thanks, Ron. Josh, we're gonna have you come back when we have time where you can go from table to table and work with some people. I just got a note that said, what is an app? So but Vaughn and I had planned to do something like this, right, Vaughn? Josh, if you work with us, we're gonna have to work that out. So, cause it's got to be. This is fantastic. I got a number of complaints last week about people not being able to hear the game. But if they got the app, they can hear it wherever there is. And Josh, I think if you show them, everybody go from table to table, how to use the app to hear the game, I think that would be 50% of our job. Okay, so you got to come back, Josh. we're going to plan things. Let's give Josh another round of applause. Vaughn said, effective immediately, all 220 members are required to have the app. So,
You gotta open it when you come in the door.
yeah. Well, the real reason we're here is football season, folks. And coach, we got some big plans for football as well. The ladies have been having such a difficult time. We just decided we need to do something about that. And we're getting a tremendous response. But one of the things I like about Coach Simmons is that when the other sports, I know when the volleyball team, the baseball team, when they won their championships, he was one of the first people, and sometimes to go on the bus and congratulate the team. So Coach Simmons is about FAMU athletics, of course, as well as football. And I just wanted to say one thing about the game, and that is keep your eyes on the prize, spelled Celebration Bowl. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to give you the head coach of the Florida A&M University Rattlers, Coach Willie Simmons.
Thank you, Eddie. I appreciate the introduction, and thank you, 220 members, for being a lot nicer to Josh this time. he was a little traumatized the last time he came, so I appreciate y'all for taking it easy on Josh. He's great at what he does, and we want to keep him. So y'all be easy on him. But no, it's great to be here. Obviously, last week went down to Tampa and to start out, want to thank Vaughn for allowing us the opportunity to hear from Steve Scruggs. That was amazing for him to come by the hotel and not only share his story with our players and talk about that 1969 game against the University of Tampa, but also break bread with us. So he and his wife and daughter were able to have dinner with us on Friday night, and I know AD Sykes, VP AD Sykes, was able to host he and his family in the suite on game day. So just excited to have him there anytime we can spend some time with our former Rattlers. It's always great. So just want to shout out Steve and his family. And then it's always great to see Coach Bogan and here and Miss Bogan. And Coach, I don't know what Coach is doing. And he hadn't aged in really 20-some years. He looked just like that when I came here in 2003. So got to get with your coach and figure out what you're doing. And no, you look great, look phenomenal. So, but the guys, went down and we knew we had a great opportunity. We felt going into the week that if we went in and played a sound, solid football game, that we'd be able to match up with them. We didn't look at the film like we had looked at teams in the past. North Carolina and even Central Florida a few years back in 2019. We didn't feel there was a huge disparity or even a disparity at all as far as talent. And so one of the messages or one of the challenges for our football team this year is that we know we're a talented group. I've said it probably since we started putting this team together back in January, that this is by far the most talented football team that I've had. This is the deepest team that we've had. And so I know it, our coaches know it, but the players also know it. And so the message for them the entire time has been talent's not enough. You're a talented team, but talent alone is not enough to achieve the ultimate goal, the ultimate prize. And so when you play a team of equal ability or greater ability, the attention to detail, the little things, they mean that much more. I thought that we were a physically superior team to Jackson. They're a good team. Obviously, they handed Southern, beat Southern pretty handily this past weekend. But on the field, we felt that we were a superior team. Couldn't say the same against South Florida. We felt that we were at least evenly matched, maybe even slightly overmatched in some areas. So whenever you play those type games, it's going to come down to little things. And then obviously you look at the game, we outgained them. We threw for more yards than they did. We sacked them more than they sacked us. But when it comes down to the little things of turnovers and penalties, that's where we lost the game. And so, much like I tell the guys, when you get to high level football, major college football, NFL football, you hear coaches talking though in those arenas. They don't talk so much about winning games. The NFL looks at the percentage of times teams lost the game, because that's the difference. Like when there's talent across the board, when everybody's talented, when everybody's good, it comes down to who makes the least amount of mistakes. And I thought Saturday's game was a microcosm of that. We made more mistakes than they did. We had 5 turnovers, and so get the ball on the opening kickoff, march it right down the field and score. A lot of momentum. They get it back. We knew they were up tempo, high powered offense. They were able to put a drive together and score. It's 7-7. We get the next kickoff and we fumble, and we give them the short field, and they get it and they score again to go up 14-7. And then 2 drives that we go back-to-back drives of interceptions. And so, now one thing I will say, our defense played as well as I've seen them play really, I mean, a long time. We had 5 turnovers, which, and you don't hear this much in football as you do in basketball, points off turnovers. Like you hear that term, points off turnovers, a lot of times in basketball. Well, we turned the ball over 5 times. In those 5 turnovers, South Florida came away with 3 points. They only scored 1 field goal off of all of our turnovers combined. So that's a testament to our defense, because the fumble was on the short side of the field. The interception, one of the interceptions was on the short side of the field, and they got the ball on their plus side and only came away with field goals. So our defense played tremendous Saturday. I can't say enough about the job that they've done. Coach Smith and his staff of that team the week before had over 550 yards of offense. They ran for over 330 yards the week before against a quality FBS opponent. West Florida is one of the best teams, not West Florida. Western Kentucky is one of the best teams in their conference. They'll be probably up to win the conference this year. And South Florida had over 550 yards of offense, 330 yards rushing. We held them to 330 total yards last Saturday, 120 rushing. The quarterback had run for 160 yards week 1. He only had about 30 against us. And we didn't give up a 100-yard rusher for the second week in a row. And so there are a lot of, of course, we always want to win. That's always something that we as Rattlers aspire to do. But there are a lot of positive takeaways from that game. Our defense is playing at a level that we haven't played here since I've been here. Okay, and so I'm very encouraged by how those guys are playing. 6 sacks against an FBS offensive line. Held those guys to under 40, right at 40% third down conversions, which is right where you want to be. Again, red zone scoring was very low, and again, they didn't run the football well, and that's what they pride themselves on doing. So defensively, played phenomenal. Special teams wise, again, you had the fumble on the kickoff return. We gave up a couple of returns. Both were called back on kickoffs. But again, got to do a better job of covering. And then we kind of went to sky kicking a little bit to try to preserve the field. But other than that, I thought we played solid, didn't play great. And then offensively, we threw the ball very well. We threw for 374 yards. Which is one of Jeremy's highest outputs here. And so he spread the ball around. We had a bunch of guys catch passes, but it was the penalties and the turnovers. The takeaway from that game was just that: 5 turnovers, 12 penalties for 115 yards. And so we clean up the little things, the mistakes, the interceptions. One was a miscommunication based on what Jeremy thought he saw coverage-wise and what the receiver thought he saw. And I understand both viewpoints just because of what South Florida did. So that one, you can live with that one. The second one was a busted assignment. We ran a screen, had some mishaps up front, and the ball got tipped in the one guy who we could have blocked because it was all out blitz. So it was a great call, all out blitz. It was Eddie's call, by the way. He had sent it down. He was like, "Coach, I think they're gonna all out blitz you. Throw a screen here, you'll score." And we should have scored, but the ball got deflected, and the one guy 3 guys had an opportunity to block, and neither guy blocked them, intercepted the ball. And so when you look at the film, that's where you just kick yourself. And I thought the offensive staff, along with Eddie's input, did a great job. The first play he told us, "Coach, run a reverse. They're gonna be super aggressive. Run a reverse." And we ran a reverse with Marcus, had it blocked up, perfectly. And if he just stays outside and just runs around on the outside, he probably scores on the first play of the game. But for whatever reason, he tried to go up inside, and the guy who was being blocked tackled him. And so it's that's the beauty of football, that 10 guys can do it exactly the way you're coached to do it. And if one guy doesn't do it the way he's coached to do it, none of us are successful. And that's why I love the game so much, because it teaches accountability on a level that I think the only thing that could even come close to it is the military. And of course, we're second to them as far as what accountability means, right? And so, that was a game that truly showed how accountable we have to be to each other, how much the attention to detail that we put into our craft every day matters. Because like I told them, we'll be favored from here on out. There's not another game that we'll play in the conference and the rest of the regular season that we won't be the favorite. But what does that mean? Just being the favorite is not enough. The talent, knowing that we're a more talented football team than the guys we're going up against, is not enough. And if all we think about is the fact that we're more talented, then we'll miss the mark. We have to pay attention to detail. We have to understand the importance of the little thing. We have to not beat ourselves. And Saturday was a result of us beating ourselves. And so much so that I was talking to one of South Florida's coaches yesterday. We were texting back and forth. And he said, Coach, without the turnovers, it's a different ball game. And this is coming from one of their coaches. And so I think everyone who saw the game and who's seen us play the first 2 weeks sees the potential of this football team. You see how talented we are. You see how athletic we are. I mean, for the second year in a row, we stood toe-to-toe with an FBS program. We're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to be able to do that at the FCS level. Go toe-to-toe with a team in, a Power 5 conference last year, and then a Group of 5 conference this year, who's really right on the cusp of when conference realignment comes around again, which will probably be sometime next year. They'll be the next team that goes up to a Power 5 conference. And so the fact that we're able to play those type of games and make it a ball game and make it interesting, we've come a long way. That wasn't the case year one, year two. So I'm pleased by the progress we're making. I'm pleased by the roster that we put together. Again, it just comes down to us focusing on the little things, watching the ball up. We had 2 false starts at wide receiver, and those are the things that really, really, frustrate you as a coach, because day one teaching, receivers don't listen to sound. They don't move off sound. They move off the snap of the ball. And twice we had receivers flinch, 1 on a 4th down and 2 where we can get a first down. And we back up and now we're forced to punt. One time on defense, we have them 3rd and 4, and the cornerback just jumps offside and touches the receiver and gives them a first down. They didn't earn that one. We gave it to them. A couple of times we had too many men on the field. We knew they were up tempo. We didn't substitute fast enough, or we shouldn't have been substituting at all. And so some of them were self-inflicted from the players. A couple of them were from us as coaches, having to do a better job of understanding who we're playing and what they're trying to do to attack us. And but all in all, again, all those things are fixable. That's the encouraging part. It would be much tougher if I was standing here saying that they were just better than we were. They were just more physically more dominant than we were. We didn't have the depth. That would be frustrating. That would be hard, because now we got to figure out how to make something out of nothing. Every issue that we've had over the last 2 weeks is fixable, and that's a good thing about it. So, my coaching staff and myself, we are charged with doing that, identifying the issues we need to fix, working hard to fix them. And I'm excited about this weekend. I'm excited about debuting Ken Riley Field. I was talking to my media. HBCU Go will do the game this weekend. So Charlie Neal, many of you may know Charlie, longtime announcer. He and his team are doing the game this weekend. So I had a chance to interview with him today, and he mentioned about coming up to Ken Riley Field. Well, one of the blessings about being the head coach at FAMU is that you're part of a history that's second to none. The fact that you get to have your name mentioned with the Jake Gaither, with the Rudy Hubbard, with the Ken Riley, with the Billy Joe, even the Joe Taylor, is something that I don't take lightly. But I will get to do something that neither one of those great monumental men have done, and that's lead my team out onto Ken Riley football field. And that's something that I'll never forget. It's going to be a magical moment. I was blessed enough to have Coach Riley come and speak to the team our first year in 18, and just remembering who he was, what he stood for. He coached my god brother here, back in the late 80s and early 90s, and just to have that honor to see his name on the video board on the field is going to be truly amazing. So looking forward to that, and also tomorrow. I'm sorry, Friday we will have a ceremony at the convocation to unveil the George Godfather Thompson football locker room. We're naming our locker room after Godfather. And so we're going to do that Friday after convocation with he and his family. And so, again, just an amazing weekend of great events happening, so much so that we moved Hall of Fame weekend to next weekend. It's usually the first home game. We moved that to next weekend because we got so much going on with honoring Coach Riley's family and Godfather's family. So excited about that, and looking forward to playing a West Florida team that again is very dangerous. Whenever you can win a national championship, you're a good program. And they won a D2 national championship in 2019. I think 3 years after they started a program. They started football around 2017 or 16. They won a championship in 19. So that's pretty impressive. And they're a very, very formidable team. To show the level of talent that West Florida has, we had the opportunity to scrimmage them back in 2020. We didn't play that fall, obviously, because of COVID. So the NCAA allowed us to do scrimmages. So we scrimmaged Fort Valley State, and then we scrimmaged West Florida. Well, the quarterback at the time at West Florida is a young man by the name of Austin Reed from Jacksonville. Well, Austin Reed transferred out after that year. He's not a starting quarterback at Western Kentucky. So he's the quarterback that played South Florida the week before. And last year, he led the nation in passing yards. The entire country led the entire country in passing yards. He was the starting quarterback at West Florida when they came to play us in 2020. The starting center for West Florida is now the starting center, I think, in Coastal Carolina, which is the FBS program. So that shows the level of talent that they have. So they won't be a team that's coming in that's going to lay down. They're going to come in, play hard. They're not going to be intimidated by us. The roles are reversed. We were the smaller division team last week trying to pull off the upset for a larger division team on their home field. They're the smaller division team trying to come and pull off the upset against a larger division team this weekend. So, again, South Florida knew that they couldn't take us for granted because they saw how good we were the week before. Well, the first 2 weeks of the season, they've outscored their opponents 70-6. They won both games 35-3. And so we know we have our hands full, but we will be the team that's more talented. We will be the team that's bigger, faster, stronger. We just got to make sure we do the little things right to not beat ourselves, and we should be just fine. But again, a great opportunity. Looking forward to seeing everyone there this weekend as we start our home slate. We're trying to extend the nation's second longest home win streak to 16 games. We're currently at 15. And so a lot to play for. The senior class, a lot of the guys out on the senior class this year have never lost at Bragg. The guys that we signed in the 2019 class have never lost at home. And we definitely want to start that now. So a lot to play for. Love the guys' attitude this week. 3 great days of preparation. We'll have our 4th one tomorrow, walk through on Friday, and then be ready to go for Rattler Walk Saturday afternoon about 4:45. So hope to see everyone there as we usher the guys into the stadium with the Marching 100. So as always, we'll open for some questions, and then we'll let you guys get on with your great day. Yes, sir. We'll start over in the corner. So injury-wise, so we unfortunately lost one player for the season. Mike Marshall, our backup left guard, fractured his ankle, and so he had surgery yesterday morning. Successful surgery. His mom and sister came up from Miami. They're with him now, and he's in good spirits. I'll tell you, tough joker, man. He was down on the ground, and he knew something was seriously wrong, but he wasn't gonna lay on that ground. I'm not gonna repeat what he said because this is live and it's a kid-friendly show. But he wanted us to know that he wasn't gonna lay down on the ground. Get him up and get him off the field. And but that shows just his toughness, his grit. He's gonna be a really, really good player for us. Was a defensive lineman, 3-star defensive lineman coming out of high school. We moved him to offensive line the middle of the season last year, and When he comes back, he's got a point to prove. So unfortunately, he's done for the year. And then one of our backup nickel backs and special teams players, Lamar Clark, will have to have shoulder surgery, and he may be done for the year as well. But other than that, Cardell rolled his ankle. He'll be a game time decision on Saturday. But I mean, he's not, he's able to come back. So, but the two guys, Lamar and Mike Marshall, unfortunately, are done for the year. I'm not quite sure what play you're talking about, Wilbur. I don't cut up on the sideline, so I don't know who you were watching. It wasn't me that they were holding back. But I'm not sure. Obviously, once the game starts, I stay on the refs pretty hard. But I thought for the most part, the game was called fairly. I thought there were a couple of calls that could have gone either way. A lot of it, and we tell our team, like when you play on the road and you play, especially out of conference, because they're going to be the refs from those conferences. These were American Conference referees. They don't watch us every week, and so the one in the end zone that we threw the corner ball, the K dot, that we thought he was held. Well, the fact that he didn't get called was because he didn't run out of the break like we tell him to. If you run out instead of looking for the ball as soon as you come out of the break, you create separation. And if the guy pulls you, it's more obvious. But if you look, as soon as you look, you're going to naturally slow down. That's just human nature. Ed is the only person, and Bob Hayes, the only people who can run full speed looking backwards. Everybody else is going to slow down. And so if we just do those little things right, we give them a greater chance to call the penalty. Same thing if they're holding you. Well, if they hold you and you just stop fighting, it doesn't look like they're restricting you. But if you're hustling and you're trying to get to the ball and they're restricting you, it's a lot easier to see. And so we just tell our guys, you got to make the referee. Every official says the same thing. Eddie told us when he came, we want to let them play. That's what they say. We want to let them play. So unless it's egregious, they don't want to call it, So we got to make them call it. And a couple of penalties we could have gotten I think we strained a little bit more, or do exactly what we're coached to do. But for the most part, I thought the game was the officiating wasn't the reason we lost. 5 turnovers and 12 penalties is the reason we lost. And the official didn't cause one fumble, didn't cause one penalty, didn't cause one interception. Didn't cause one penalty. They called it, but they should have called it. Like we false started, we jumped off sides, those penalties are the ones that hurt you. I don't care anything about the pass interference. Don't care anything about a hands to the face. That's playing football. That's going to happen. If you're blocking a guy hard, your hand may slip up his jersey and get under his face mask. That they can call that. That's fine. The only one that I learned was they call face mask when we grabbed the side of his helmet and it slipped down. Well, he said anything up there is face mask. I said, well, maybe an American that's face mask. I don't think they call that a SWAC. You almost got to rip a joker head off in a SWAC to get a face mask call. But other than that, I thought the officiating was good enough for us to win the game. Yeah, I was just, and I wasn't getting on him. I said, well, I just want to know if American rules are different than SWAC rules, because I didn't think if you grab the side of the head, I didn't think that was face mask. But he said it was. So I learned something new. Boss. Lower division school. So how will we get our kids, quote unquote, up to play a lesser division team, basically? Yeah. Right. Right. Well, basically, how do we keep the guys from quote unquote playing? So, and I've said this. I said it to the team on Sunday. I said it to the media. I don't subscribe to the concept of playing up or playing down. I think that's what average people do. I think an average person looks at the competition and says, okay, well, I got to get ready for this one because they're going to be tough, or I ain't got to prepare as hard because they're not very good. That's what average people do. I think champions, I think people who have a that type of mentality, a killer mentality, so to speak, they're challenging themselves every week. Our challenge, I told the team from the beginning, there's not a team on our schedule that's that much better than us that we say we got to get up for. The greatest challenge that this football team has is ourselves, because we know we're talented. And so I told them Sunday, I told them before, and I tell them almost as often as I can. To every day when we wake up, there's two forces pulling against us. There's a force of the best that we can be. All right. Our motto is our standard is excellence. That's our team motto. Our standard is excellence. Well, we believe the only way to hit excellence is to chase perfection. If you chase perfection, you'll hit excellence somewhere along the way. So every day we can choose to strive for that, strive to be perfect, to see how good we can be. Or we can fight that spirit of complacency that's in every single person that wakes up every day. All of us wake up with a spirit of complacency that says, I ain't got to work that hard today. I can just do whatever and get through the day. Like, we all struggle. I mean, the greatest athlete that walks the face of the earth has that same spirit every day that tells him, I ain't got to do hard. LeBron James, the most physically gifted athlete that we've ever seen in our lifetime, whether you say he's the best basketball player or not, that's up for debate. No one can debate that he's the most physically gifted human being that we've ever seen play with a basketball. He's 6'8", 260, and runs a 4.4 and jumps 40 inches in the air. We've never seen that. Every day he wakes up to say, you know what? I got the DNA jackpot. I can take a day off. Something in his mind tells him that he has to fight that spirit every day to go out there and outwork these 20-year-old guys coming to the league who's trying to take his spot. Or he can chase that spirit that says, I want to be the greatest basketball player that ever lived, ever lived. And he's chasing that. And so we have the same challenge as a football team. We are a talented group. We are an extremely talented football team. So we can chase all the great teams that Jake coached, all the great teams that Rudy coached, the great teams that built. We can chase those guys and try to get our names mentioned in the same breath as theirs, or we can just be a really good football team and win 9 or 10 games again just by rolling the ball out there and playing, because we're talented enough to just roll the ball out and play and probably win 9. Or we may slip up here and there because of. So that's what we're focused on. We're not focused on the fact that South Florida is a Division II. We weren't focused on the fact that South Florida, West Florida is Division II. We weren't focused last week that South Florida was a FBS. We face ourselves every day, and we're trying our best to get those guys to understand that we have to chase perfection. If we chase perfection, everything else takes care of itself, because we will be the best version of ourselves come game day. And regardless of who we play, they'll see the best version of the Rattlers. And if the best version of the Rattlers means you get beat 75-0, so be it. If the best version of us means that it's a close ball game because the other team is talented too, then so be it. But the focus has to stay on us. We control us. Everything else takes care of itself. To me, that prevents the whole play up, play down narrative. People that talk about playing up or playing down are looking at external factors. They're not holding themselves accountable to what they have to do every day. So as long as we keep that mindset and focus, I don't worry about a letdown on Saturday. If we have a letdown, it's because we're not preparing to be our best. Not that we're worried about a Division II team coming in, but they're good enough to beat us at the end of the day. And every team's good enough to beat us if we're not focusing on the little things that it takes to be a good football team.
Sometimes you get a little discouraged when you hit up in there, you don't get enough of yards you may think you did. But you should hit up in there every time thinking that you can break that thing and make a good run or do a home run.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to see our running backs have that attitude of trying to score every time they get that football.
Yes, sir, Mr. Bellum. I appreciate that. So just talking about the running backs and, trusting that it's going to be there. And, I totally agree. When you play a team of that caliber, just like the higher up you go, the definition of what an open hole is changes the higher level of competition. I tell the quarterbacks the definition of what open means changes, right? You're a high level basketball player. Well, an open shot in college is a lot different than an open shot in the NBA. In the NBA, that guy standing right beside you, that's still open. You got to be able to make that shot. Well, college, it may be 2 or 3 feet wider. That's open. Same thing in college. For a high school quarterback, open means that the guy standing from me to that camera. Well, in college, that space closes a lot more, and you still have to be able to make that throw. In the NFL, it's even tighter. There's no such thing as a guy running wide open in the NFL. So for the running backs, the week before, our offensive line was more dominant than Jackson's defensive line, so those holes were a little bit wider. Last week, those holes shrunk a little bit. One, because South Florida made a commitment to stopping the run. They totally changed their game plan after the first drive. They went straight to a man pressure defense and said, "You are not going to beat us running the ball. We're going to make you one-dimensional." We went on an 11-play drive. They pressured us on 10 of those 11 plays. And so they just said they're going to put more guys in the box than we can block. So that makes the running backs' jobs a little bit tougher because obviously now we tell them all there's not many plays where we can block them all. There's going to be one person left that the running back has to make miss on most run plays. Well, if they're playing a traditional defense, that guy may be 8 yards from the line of scrimmage, or 6 or 7. Well, last week he was about 3 or 4 because they just had so many guys near the box. So for our backs, there's a tougher challenge to make that first guy miss. And so we didn't have the explosive runs last Saturday as we had the Sunday prior, but that's a challenge to us because, in my opinion, South Florida kind of gave people a blueprint. Say, hey, even though the quarterback threw for 375, we'll take it as long as they don't rush for another 150. And that's kind of our philosophy on defense as well. I tell the defense all the time, I don't care how many yards they throw for, don't let them run it. Because if they can run it and throw it, then you can't stop them. And you're not going to stop a prolific passing team. You just can't. The way the game is played now, with the advent of spread offenses and all those things, it's very difficult to stop a team from throwing the football. So you say, let them do that. You just can't let them do both. And so they made a commitment, and they succeeded in that commitment to stopping our run. But we got to make sure that if another team tries that we'll have an answer. And trust me, we will. No other team will be able to load the box against us and stop our run the way South Florida did. And I'm glad it happened early in the season because, again, it did force us as an offensive staff to say, hey, what's our plan? Moving forward, they completely threw that. I mean, they took the playbook and ripped it up and threw it out after the first drive and went to something we had never seen them do on film and just played man and pressured us the whole game. So, but yes, our running backs are up for the challenge this week. I think we got to get back to running the football. Our offensive line understands that in order to do that, we have to communicate a lot better. I thought we had some breakdowns in communication last week as far as identifying all of the looks they gave us. They jumped into some fronts that we hadn't really worked on, but we got to be able to see that and communicate it. So again, great challenge for us early, and I think it'll help us as the season goes on because we got to force ourselves to communicate against whatever we see.
The quarterback never got a chance to go to his bench. And he had to work the entire game because it was always on the line until the one quarter. And I never thought we were really out of it until the end.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, we were in it the entire time. I mean, when they scored the last touchdown, I mean, it was 31-24. And so it's 4th and 6, 31-24. I mean, they really rolled the dice. Because if they don't convert there, we got the ball with a chance to tie. And so they ended up scoring and to go up by 2 scores at that point. But I mean, it was a ball game up until the last second, So again, that's always the goal. You want to give yourself a chance to win. And the fact that, again, that we had 5 turnovers, they had none. We had 12 penalties. I think they had, 5 or 6. The fact that it was just that big of a disparity in turnovers and penalties, and with 3 minutes left in the game, we were down 7, says all it needs to say about the talent of this team. We got to capitalize on. You take one of those penalties away, it's a different ball game. You eliminate 2 of those penalties, it's a different ball game. We played very well against them on third down. So we don't jump off sides and give them a first down on 3rd and 4. If we stop them, they punt the ball to us, and they scored on that drive. So the crushing part was the drive they did score on were all drives that we had penalties on that extended drives. And so you take those away, they don't score on those drives. It's a different ball game. We don't turn the ball over. We fumbled on the 5-yard line going in before halftime. On the 5. so worst case, we get a field goal out of it and we get points. So again, if you go into halftime, if even if we get a field goal that drive and we go into halftime down 4 after having turned the ball over 4 times already, that other team is panicking in the locker room. It's a totally, and Coach Bogan can tell you as a coach, it's a totally different mindset when you know you've been outplayed and you're like, Coach, they're playing terribly and they're still in this ball game. But the fact they were able to comfortably go in with a 10-point lead or 14-point lead because we didn't score really kind of changed the momentum a little bit. So again, and none of the fumbles were crushing hits. They were just bad ball security. So again, fundamental basic football, we got to get back to that. And but this team will be just fine. So I'm really encouraged by it. At the end of the year, the SWAC East champs will play the SWAC West champs. Yes, sir. It will be at the host site of the best record. So it'll be in Tallahassee. Simon. So the question was explained the short kicks, which we call them pooch kicks. So and again, after every game, you go in and you assess decision making and hey, we should have done this differently or whatever. That was one of the things that I said we probably went to one too many times. They had a couple of long kickoff returns. Looking back on it, both got called back because of holding penalties. And so I think Coach Gamble was concerned about our coverage. And so we ended up pooch kicking the ball and kicking it to about the 30-yard line, make them fair catch it, and they take it at the 30. Well, after doing that a couple of times, the return team can prepare for it and say, okay, well, hey, catch it and run, and now you're to the 40. So once it got later in the game, it became a field position game because our defense was playing tremendously. So even if we stop them, we're giving it to them at the 35 or 40. Well, they're gonna punt it, and we got to start from backed up on the -10. So the last one, I like I said, I'm kicking myself because we should have just kicked it deep and made them. And like I said, in a game like that, again, you the old saying, "Scared money don't make money," right? I know you understand that being a gambling man. So we should have been more aggressive on that. We should have kicked the ball off deep, covered, try to get them down inside of 25 and make them drive. And if they drive, great, they earned it. But if they don't drive, they punt it to us. Now we got great field position to go down and score. So, short kicking it in those situations, probably at that time wasn't the most ideal because the last one they ran the ball out to like the 42-yard line. Well, half the field is already cut away. So even if they go 3 and out, they still get to punt the ball down to the 5 or 10-yard line. So, but we shouldn't have to sky kick anymore this season. We have a strong leg kicker who can kick the ball to the end zone, and yeah, exactly. And we have coverage guys who can run. So if we give up a long return, it's because we're not running fast enough. So play fast. You're right. You're right. And so to your point, I mean, you're spot on with it. And again, like this the question. Well, it wasn't really a question. It was um, you know, the offensive line. Well, me and Eddie got to work on offense first and foremost. Jeremy needs to settle down and make the throws, and the line has to protect better. Again, this was by far, in my opinion, I haven't watched every team on my schedule yet, but this was by far the most physically dominant team we'll play. The FBS program, a lot of their transfers came from Power Five schools. And so nobody will be bigger, nobody will be stronger than these guys. So, yes, it was a challenge for our offensive line to consistently hold up and protect Jeremy. Jeremy, once you watch the film, Jeremy actually played a very solid game in the passing game. The mistakes Jeremy made was in the run game. There were some run checks that he could have made that he didn't. And there were a couple of read plays where he should have pulled the ball and he didn't. But as far as throwing the ball, I thought he threw the ball extremely well. The ones he missed, and this is just, only Ed and I understand because we were the two quarterbacks in the room. Everyone sees the incompletion and it looks like an errant throw. Well, the receivers didn't help Jeremy. They didn't run full speed routes. They didn't get their proper depth. So it's hard as a quarterback when you're used to, I mean, as quarterbacks, we're taught to operate on habit. So I'm throwing to a spot because contrary to popular belief, no matter if you're 6'5" as a quarterback or 5'4", like Eddie was playing quarterback, you cannot see over the offensive line. You see through windows. And so oftentimes if you're in the pocket and you have a 6'4" offensive lineman blocking a 6'3" defensive lineman, you don't see through him. But your receiver has to be to that spot on the field. So you throw it to that spot, hoping that he's going to be there. That's the trust that you got to have in the passing game. Well, if they're not there because the route's too short or they're not running full speed, well, then it's an incompletion. Well, it looks like the quarterback's not accurate. Well, no, he's doing exactly what he's coached to do. It's the receivers who are not doing their job. And so that's where the film, that's why you'll never hear me comment really much on the game right afterwards, because the film tells you so much that full speed live action can't tell you. Jeremy graded out throwing the ball as well as he has since he's been here. He made some phenomenal throws against tight man coverage the entire game because they just went and played straight man coverage. We missed some throws in zone coverage because again the receivers aren't helping Jeremy. The receivers did not play a very good game, and I'm just being frank about that. Threw for a lot of yards. Nick Dixon had his best game as a Rattler, but consistently we're not doing enough to play to the caliber of that group. The receiver group is the most talented group on our team. As far as top to bottom talent, there's no group on our team, D-line, linebackers, there's no position that's as deep and as talented as our wide receivers. So we need more from them. We need a bigger commitment to consistency, to details, fundamentals from that group. And if they do that, we'll have the passing attack that that we know we're capable of having, and that's throwing for 300 plus yards a game. So, but again, and I thought throwing the ball, and again, I was the same as you. First pass is kind of corner route to Jeremy sailed, and I was like, man, watch the film. It was totally on the receiver. I mean, he ran the laziest, slowest corner route known to mankind. So he didn't help him. And so if we run full speed routes, we get to our spots, we work the beat leverage, Jeremy's shown that he can get the ball to you. And so we just got to be more consistent in the passing game. But the biggest concern was the run game. We got to fix the run game and across the board. Well, we had more sacks than them, so he didn't really have 20 hours. I mean, we got after his butt. Well, if somebody has too long against our defense, that's a problem. I don't think anybody's gonna be able to sit back there and what we call burp the baby. You know, if you see a quarterback back there patting the ball against our guys, he's gonna be in trouble. He better get the ball out of his hands. But it's well, we've been one of the top sack teams in the conference over the last few years. So we do get after the quarterback, but it's we lead the nation in sacks right now. Yeah, we lead the entire nation in sacks after 2 weeks. So we're getting after the quarterback pretty good. But yeah, no, it's when you get up to the highest levels of football, the D linemen are gonna always be better than the offensive linemen. And so you don't, as a quarterback, this summer I went and had a chance to go to the NFL. It's called the NFL Quarterback Summit. So it's some college coaches, and we get to interact with NFL coaches, and they're trying to create a pipeline of more minority coaches coaching quarterbacks, being offensive coordinators, ultimately being head coaches. And so I got a chance to hear from Pep Hamilton, who played at Howard. I think Pep Hamilton played at Howard, and he's been an NFL quarterback coach for a long time. When they evaluate quarterbacks in college to play at the next level, they evaluate them on their ability to throw the ball from different angles. Because in the NFL, you're never in what they call a clean pocket. You're never able to just sit back there and just bounce in one spot and find an open receiver. Anybody who watched the Cowboys game the other night, that guy was running for his life because now defensive linemen are just too big and fast and athletic. So you have to be able to get rid of the ball quickly, throw the ball from different angles, and that's what they're charged to do. So if anybody's throwing the ball against us, it's because they have a quarterback who's running around like a chicken with his head cut off. The second half against Jackson State, that's what that little guy was doing. He was just running around and trying to find an open receiver, and luckily he was able to hit some guys and hit a big ball. So we pressure the quarterback without blitzing. We don't call a lot of blitzes. We're getting after the quarterback with 4 guys against their 5. And so now what they were able to do was they were able to create pressure on us with 5. They were bringing 5 a lot, which creates all one-on-ones. And so we just have to strain a little bit more, but again, that's the biggest, strongest team that we're going to play. Nobody else will be able to get that type of pressure on Jeremy as those guys did. And even the stats we gave up, a couple were busted protections. We didn't identify the right guy in protection. The running back was not on the same page with the offensive line. So those are the little things we got to clean up. But we'll be good enough. We're good enough up front. We're deep enough up front, even with a couple of injuries that we have, that we're going to be able to keep Jeremy upright. We'll be able to run the ball effectively. For us, again, it goes back to the same thing. If we communicate, we have a saying on the offensive line: if we're all wrong, we're all right. Which means if one person identifies the wrong person and everybody echoes and they block the next people, we're going to be all right. But if one guy identifies one person, another guy identifies somebody else, we cut somebody free, then that's not good old line play. And so, but it was great to play that game because, your deficiencies or things that you're not great in are more magnified, not exposed, but it's just more magnified because when you play the best competition you're going to play all year, you got to be really, really good that week. And we were good. We just weren't great because if we were great, we'd have beat them. But the things, like I said, the things that we're talking about today are 100% fixable. We've already addressed many of them. And most of it comes down to just, like you said, the focus mentally to make the right decision, make the right call. And then we play hard. Like the one thing Coach said after the game, like, Coach, man, y'all play hard. Our boys are going to fight. They're going to play their butts off. And, even and I know we'll get to the next question. So South Florida this week plays the University of Alabama. And we know good luck to them. We have some friends of ours who coach at the University of Alabama. And I spoke with one yesterday, and he said, Coach, I just want to commend you guys on how y'all played. He said, usually when teams play lower, like typically Alabama wouldn't have watched Saturday's game because they say, all right, well, they play. Just full transparency, it's been really tough for us to watch West Florida's film this week because they played 2 teams who really, frankly, aren't very good. And so, the competition is nothing like what we're going to see. So it's not even close. And a lot of times, and Alabama would typically think that about a team playing an FCS opponent. But he said, Coach, our whole staff sat there and watched, and we were like thoroughly impressed by how you guys played, by how hard y'all played, by how sound you were. And yeah, we made mistakes, but they complimented us on just the quality of football that they saw. And that's the goal for us. Like that's what I tell our guys all the time. When people see our brand, they need to see excellence. Even if we don't win, they need to see a good brand of football. And that's what they saw. That's what the University of Alabama coaches saw by watching our film. And so, we're the standard is what it is because we've created it. We expect to go and beat South Florida. Like our fans expect us to go to Tampa and beat South Florida. Like we really do. Our players expected that. Our coaches expected that. But the percentages say that don't happen. Like that rarely happens that an FBS team goes and beats an FCS team. It hasn't been done at the HBCU level since 2018 when North Carolina A&T beat East Carolina. And so we were working to do something that hadn't been done in 6 years, in which before that hadn't happened, very often at all. But because of what we are as a program, we expect that. And I'm glad that that's the case. Every school can't say that. Like we have some unrealistic fan bases. I'm sure, there were some games last week against FBS teams and their fans like, yeah, we're going to beat, but they ain't got a chance. But we had a legitimate chance to go and beat an FBS team on their home field. And so because of that, the expectations are through the roof. And Charlie Ward told us when he came and talked to the team early in training camp, when the expectations are high, the work ethic, the attitude, the commitment has to be higher than the expectation. And that's the challenge for this team. The expectations for this team are through the roof. People are talking about making reservations for Atlanta right now, right? And I'm glad that that's the case. So our attitudes and work ethic has to exceed that. And if we get to that place consistently, again, this will be a season for the ages. And I'm excited about that opportunity. Well, she got to work on Eddie. I can't. That's that. You said Eddie and I need to work on. No, that's your assignment. You got Eddie. So get them right by Saturday. Go ahead, Selva. Yes, sir. Manigo will be probably one more week. We want to make sure that he's good to go. We don't want to rush him back and have a setback. So we'll hold Manigo for one more week. He'll be ready to go next week. Yes. So as far as the offensive line rotation, so one, Coach Henry has the luxury of having a very deep offensive line. We have a lot of guys that can play, but two, TJ Lee, our starting center, was starting to break down a little bit. He's getting fatigued, and I think he was battling a little bug last week or something like that. He had lost a little weight before the games, so nothing major. But he just wasn't as fresh as we would have liked him to be. So coach was kind of rolling him in and out of there to try to keep him preserved through the game. And Caesar, his biggest thing is just the consistency of the snaps. About once or twice a game, he's gonna roll that thing back there, and makes it hard to play when you don't get good shotgun snaps. So that's your job. You get back there and snap with him. Make sure Leroy, that's your job, Leroy. All right, always talking about offensive line. Make sure Caesar getting them snaps together. But yeah, so he kind of rolls them in to try to keep them fresh. Of course, Jalen's kind of coming off a high ankle sprain, so we want to kind of limit his pitch kind of a little bit. Cam Colvin, same thing, had major surgery in the off season. He's 100% cleared, but if we can spell them for a series or two, we try to do so. And fortunately, we have enough depth at those positions to be able to do so. But yeah, that's why you saw the rolling centers last week, was because TJ just was he couldn't sustain for the whole game. So South Florida's announcers were saying that we were trying to play South Florida's guy. I don't even know what that means. He was saying that we were playing fast because they were playing fast. Well, I mean, so okay, so again, I've been on the other side of this thing more times than not. So typically, when we play, when I say we, teams at the FCS level, the three HBCUs I've been a part of, typically you're severely overmatched. When I was at Alcorn State, we played Mississippi State. My claim to fame at Alcorn is that nobody knew who Dak Prescott was until he played Alcorn because he was a backup quarterback, and the starter had gotten hurt the week before, so they wanted to rest him against little Alcorn. Well, inserts Dak Prescott, and that other kid never plays again, and so we saw Dak Prescott firsthand before anybody else knew who he was. So we went into that game. When I was at Prairie View, we played Texas A&M. Here we played Central Florida when they finished top 10 in the nation. Going into those games, we are in over our heads. Right? There ain't a whole lot we can do to win this game. So they're up tempo. They're going to go fast. We have to slow the game down. We need to snap the ball with 3 seconds up on the clock every play, let that clock run, and try to get out of Dodge with a respectable loss. Like, that's true. We'll never tell our team that, but it's coaches. We understand that. Like, we are severely overmatched at every position. There's a position on the field that one of our guys will play there for them. So you slow the game down in those cases. That wasn't the case Saturday. We looked at them and said, we play our game. We can beat these guys. So we're going to just play our game. Like, we're going to tempo at times. We're going to slow the game down at times. We're going to huddle it. But that's what we do every week. Like, we didn't do anything differently than we did the week before. We had the same tempo, same operation that we did against Jackson. So I don't know what that meant. We were playing their game. We play fast at times. So for us going fast, that's because we thought it was good to go fast in that situation. So again, we don't have a game on our schedule this year, thankfully, that we are that severely overmatched. Last year, North Carolina, I felt that way, that we can play with them to a certain extent, but I knew we didn't have the depth to play with them for 4 quarters. So we need to speed the game up, limit the opportunities so that our guys aren't playing 70, 80 snaps. Our defense got worn down. So by the time Carolina got to about snap number 75 on defense, against our defense, we were done. They could do whatever they wanted to do because we were just gassed. So in that game, yes, you want to slow it down. Saturday wasn't that game. We felt that we could play with those guys, and we were in the game up until that last touchdown. And even when we got it back, we just didn't convert because we go down and score. It's a 7-point game again with 3 minutes left, and we got all our timeouts. And so, again, that sentiment of us playing their game, I don't think it rung true last week. Has in the past, but definitely wasn't the case last week. Yes, Marquise Bell, man. So again, the game on Monday night, the Dallas, was it Sunday night? Sunday night. Yeah, Dallas against the Giants. It took us a second. I'm like, because we're trying to find, like, is Marquise playing? He changed his number. He's number 14 now as opposed to 41. So about the 5th tackle, we was like, oh, that's Bell right there. And but man, I mean, played lights out. Led the team in tackles, forced a fumble. I listened to a podcast yesterday, a Dallas Cowboys podcast. They raved about him, just how he's played, and they're one of the lead scout who has this area, who's from Tallahassee. Text me and Coach Smith during the game, just saying, like, our boy is out there killing it. And so, man, Mark, I'm so excited about Marquise and his potential, what he's gonna do for those guys. And I mean, I know got some Cowboys fans in the mix, but I mean that team looked as good as any Cowboys team I've seen in a long time. So I'm not making any predictions. I'm only a Cowboys fan because Marquise plays on it. I'm a Colts fan. I'm a Rams fan because we got 3 Rattlers on those teams. And so, but man, just to see him, he's showing everybody what we already knew. That guy. And I always defend my players, but I mean, I had a real intense conversation with the executive director of an all-star game when Marquise was coming out, because he wanted to tell me that he didn't think Marquise was a pro. And I vehemently disagreed and told him that, like, I ain't been doing as long as you, sir, but I know a pro when I see a pro. And this kid is a pro, and he's going to be a successful pro, and he's proven everybody who doubted him wrong. And man, I'm just so proud of that kid. Was able to see, he came to the game in Miami. He loves FAMU. He reps FAMU. All those guys do. Xavier does. Isaiah Land does. It's just great to see those guys represent FAMU in the National Football League. But I think Marquise is on his way to a stellar NFL career if he keeps doing what he's doing. All righty. So, all right. Well, hey, look forward. Like I said, Rattler Walk will be about 4:45, 4:50. We'll start from Gaither Gymnasium. The Marching 100 will lead us into the stadium. So if you guys are there, have your waters. It'll be a little warm, but usher the football team into the stadium this season. That's a ritual every home game. The Rattler Walk from Gaither Gym. So look forward to seeing everyone there this weekend as we debut Ken Riley Field. Go Rattlers! Love you guys.
Yes. All I know is there's convocation celebration for George Thompson after convocation, but I don't have details. Convocation's at 10 o'clock. I